Xavier Rossinyol, thanks for being with us today. Now, as you know, this film is being shown at the Trinity Forum 2022, and a lot of your airport and brand partners indeed will be watching you. So I'd like to start, if I may, with a big picture view of the travel retail industry as you see it, having come on board officially as CEO on June 1. How do you see the state of the nation travel retail-wise?
So, first of all, Martin, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for your interest in Dufry. And big apologies to everybody for not being physically in Singapore with you. You know the schedule of this year, but I promise I'll be there next year. As we all know, we come from 2 years of the worst crisis the industry has ever seen. All the companies in the industry have suffered a lot. All the people on our companies have suffered a lot, but here we are, we survive. If we read the newspapers, it looks like another big challenge is facing in the short term. Recession, inflation that has not been seen in decades, disruptions on the supply chain, massive challenges in energy, in the cost base. But believe it or not, I remain not only optimistic, I remain massively optimistic. I think we are in a wonderful industry. Yes, with short-term shocks, short-term challenges, but we need to remember that already now the traffic has recovered very importantly. Every month is a little bit better than the prior months. Still, we have a big opportunity for 2023. I think 2023 is going to be a much better year than 2022. And all that, even having significant parts of the world still subject to travel restrictions like Asia, China. And still we are seeing very good numbers. If we think long term, the vast majority of the world population has never taken a plane. The growth structurally over the next 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, it will be extraordinary. Additionally, we are a very special retailer. As industry, we have the potential customer only a few meters away from where our shop is. And this is unique. So, of course, the opportunity is there. We, as industry, we need to take it the advantage. But I'm convinced that if airports, the brands, and the operators, we work together, the opportunity on this industry is fabulous. Short term and long term, of course, we all have seen that there is cyclical crisis, but I remain super optimistic about the future of the industry.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to start the conversation, and an encouraging one, I have to say, Xavier. I'm going to come back on some of those themes, but firstly, of course, everybody in this room at Trinity is going to expect me to have asked you about one of the talking points of our time, really, in our industry, and that's the Auto Grill merger. Giant comes together with Giant. Now, I know there are things you can't talk about at the moment because we're going through important protocols and procedures, but tell us about the vision, if you like, behind the merger. You said you are reimagining the traditional boundaries of our industry through a very consumer-led vision. Can I just push you on what that means?
So first of all, a small disclaimer. As you said, we signed the agreement. We are during the next few months going through the antitrust approval. So the transaction has only been signed but has not been approved. If everything goes as planned, the closing should happen on Q1 2023. I'm very excited about this combination of Dufry and Autogrill. I'm very happy the board of directors of Dufry approved the transaction, and I'm very happy that Edizione and the Benetton family not only approved the deal, but they are happy to support the new Dufry going forward as the most important shareholder with 25%. I think the combination will allow to finally truly address all the needs and all the desires of the traveler from an end-to-end experience. We have today duty-free stores, branded stores, we have convenience stores, now we're going to have the F&B. We need to remember that one of the limitations in our industry is the dwell time. The passengers have a limited time they spend in the airport. So making a smart combination of all the different parts of the offering, I think we can make a revolution. And instead of thinking about what we sell, or even how we sell it, to think about what the traveler needs or wants. And be more humble in this way. That's why I think the traditional boundaries are being defined with this combination. Also the digital engagement. I think we are going to be able, once we have the combined entity, to address travelers in 5,500 points of sales across 75 countries. If we do a good job, it is a way to generate massive value for those travelers that can all of a sudden have some type of loyalty with an offering that is much vast than ever before. That's why I think we will redefine the boundaries of the industry, allowing to have better services, better products. At the end of the day, the target, if you do a better job, is that the travelers will spend more money. We will increase the spend per head, and also that will deliver not only value for us, but also value for our brands and value for our airport partners.
Okay, very good. Now, you mentioned the Benetton family. Alessandro Benetton said that the union, if you like, will create the world champion, I like that term, in the sector. And he talked about the important synergies within the new group. Now, tell us about those synergies, and where they'll prove most advantageous, because aren't pure retail and food and beverage quite disparate in many ways? I get the back office synergies, but where else do you see them coming from?
So I totally agree with Mr. Alessandro Benetton, and once more I thank them for the support on this deal. Yes, there are cost synergies, and as you very well pointed out, food and beverage and retail, they have different supply chains. But there are a few considerations. Number one, today already in the convenience store, in our case through Hudson News, 55% of what we sell are convenience food and beverage, which there is a massive link with what Autogrill is doing in the US, for example, and across the world. But apart from the direct cost synergies that you can have on certain parts of our assortment or on the back office, I think the most important synergies are not cost synergies, are, if you want, revenue synergies. Our capacity to bring something different, something new. Let's imagine we bring hybrid concepts where you can combine a retail and a food and beverage, which could be on the convenience side, coffees and Hudson, but could be also on the luxury side. I mean, if you have in a shop gourmet products that are part of the local flavor, why not to combine that with a tasting bar or an option? I think those synergies that, to be very fair, we have not quantified and we have not announced, I think that's where the real value of the combination lies.
Yeah, and that's a very consumer-centric point of view, which is a nice segue actually to my next question. You rather nicely put it that Dufry's main stakeholder was the traveler, and I really like that. And your four-pillar strategy that you laid out has the purpose, and I'm going to quote it again, to make travelers happier. That's a nice thought. How are you going to do that?
As you said, it's a nice thought. We all know that life in general, but particular business, is about execution. So everything is not about nice words or nice ideas, it's about executing on them. I think the travel centricity is fundamental. We are in the Trinity Forum, but the three parts of the Trinity, we all, at the end of the day, rely on what is in the middle of that Trinity, that is the passenger. And I think for us, focusing on the traveler, on the consumer, before anything else, is the way to generate value for all the other three parties going forward. How we're going to do it is basically first starting understanding what the traveler wants. So it's a lot about research. One of the big advantages today is that many times you don't need to ask people what they want, you just need to listen to them in social media. People already tell you what they want. So we're going to enhance massively our knowledge of the travelers through the proper research, and we are increasing the budget on that. And then once you know what they want or what they need, then you need to customize your offering more and more to the particularities of the different places. The shops themselves, the assortment, the pricing. The good news is that today, the retail industry, more than the travel retail industry, has advanced massively in technology that allows you to do dynamic pricing with very smart algorithms. You can change the assortment at the speed that was not possible in the past. So I think using better tools, we can really adapt what we do to the needs of the customers. And I think also that's the massive trend of what airports want. Airports are demanding more and more something particular. For me, the key of the success will be to offer something that is different for the passengers, that is customized to what they want, but to do it on a cost-efficient manner. So what the passenger don't see, it should be standardized to make it cost-efficient. Because at the end of the day, we are also running a business, and it's not realistic to think that if every shop is totally different from another shop, at the end of the day, that's not manageable. So it needs to be a balance.
Yeah. Now let's talk about this execution. You know, within the plan, clear focus and an appropriate focus on maximizing spend per head, getting people to spend more this year, next year, 5 years from now. The same offer won't cut it as before. And you've acknowledged that very well in the results call. So you pledged adapting the offering, adapting pricing, as you just mentioned a moment ago, maximizing the in-store experience, and digital critically. Can you put any more flesh on the bones? It's a big picture vision, but it comes back to that word execution, doesn't it?
Well, hopefully we will execute on all of those. Not necessarily I'm going to disclose all the things we are planning. We also, it's competitive environment here. But look, I think a few ideas. First, the smart self-learning store. I think technology can really help a lot to understand what's happening in the store and to constantly evolve that store, because also our passengers change, the mix changes, the needs change. So what you cannot do anymore is to design something and to think that for 5 or 7 years is going to work. You need to understand that might have to change. So we need a much more self-learning and flexible type of stores. Salesforce. For me, technology can help. We can have self-checkouts, but the Salesforce remains, and we want to make it even more important as an essential part on the interaction and the experience with the passengers. That means more training. It means more tools for the Salesforce. The digital engagement. I think today, when people travel, don't see how they can get a connection between all the experiences they have in the airports. We have a loyalty program that has worked well, but if you ask me, it should be not even 10, it should be 100 times better. So we are going to do a lot to really provide value to the passengers on our loyalty program through a digital engagement. But one thing, and the last thing maybe I want to mention is entertainment. People want to have fun. People want to see things different. And I'm not going to talk the obvious like an Instagram place where you can take. Then we compete many times against a device, against a last TV show that people or TikTok. And this is not another retailer. This is not online retailing. This is entertainment. We need to make fun stores where you just want to enter because there is something different. The long-term purpose for Dufry, and this is massively ambitious, but I would love that one day, maybe it's 5 years from now, maybe 7 years from now, people decide to go to the airport 30 minutes before because they want to see what it is. I imagine families, the children saying, look, let's go earlier because always there is something fun here or there. It's easy to do, no. It's difficult because you need entertainment, has to change, etc. But I think we need to have a much more fun stores. Otherwise, people will not enter the stores. And if people don't enter the stores, they will not shop. So that's the first step. So I think it's an amazing journey, the one that we have ahead of us.
Yeah, airports is part of the journey, not just a process to be got through. I think it's a really, really important point. Look, we've talked already a lot about digital. The one thing the pandemic clearly has done to the world is accelerated the use of digital across cultures, across generations, both in commerce and communication terms, I would say, Xavier. Dufry clearly has made big steps along the digital road. Where do you see priorities in digitalization at the moment? And how key is your partnership with a very formidable digital player in the form of Alibaba?
As you very well said, I mean, Dufry has been making major investments and major efforts on the last years on the digitalization. I think I found an extraordinary foundation on which we need to build more and more. I think the key element for me on digital is that I have seen many companies where digital, like also ESG, for example, it's something that is somewhere up there that somebody's doing. That could be some smart IT people are doing something in digital. And I think that needs to completely change. Digital, like ESG, has to be on the day-to-day of what every employee does. It needs to be tangible on your day-to-day. And I think if we are able to get all these machine learning algorithms we have, this artificial intelligence that it's already there in the company, but we need to deploy it to make a difference on the day-to-day. Otherwise, they are theoretical headquarters projects. So the main aim on digital is to make it tangible on the day-to-day on every employee that we have in the group. Alibaba is an extraordinary partner. They are amazing technologically. They have an understanding, particularly in China and the Chinese, second to none. And our idea is to keep building on what we have done so far. But the priority of the collaboration with Alibaba is particularly on following the Chinese travelers in China and outside China. And yes, Chinese travelers, as we all know, they have limitations now to fly, but they are going to come back. They're going to, over the next decade, it's going to be one of the key driving forces in the industry. And I think this collaboration, this strategic collaboration with Alibaba will be absolutely instrumental to make a big difference. And hopefully you will see some realities over the coming months, which I'm not going to disclose today yet.
We will watch that space. All right. Concession fees. You would be not surprised for me to push you on these. It's been a perennial subject, I suppose, of every Trinity since the first one way back in 2003. You said during the earnings call that the group needs to be extremely vigilant, quote, in monitoring fee levels post-crisis or post the nadir of the crisis, we should say. Now, as we move beyond the MAG relief period of this crisis and back into a world of, as we know, renewed open tenders, do you see a new reality emerging, maybe a new kind of rationality ultimately taking shape in this industry, or will the needs perhaps of some badly wounded landlords, airport authorities, necessitate perhaps a reversion to status quo? And just to build on that question, you hinted during the earnings call that the past pressure, the very serious pressures on concession fees actually will continue, in which case I suppose the old conundrum emerges, doesn't it, Xavier? If you don't bid high, you don't win. History tells us if you do bid high, you can ultimately lose because you'll lose on profitability. What's the key to staying in the game but still maintaining a sensible, sustainable profitability?
Because I know you from many years, I'm going to say something that probably I shouldn't say, but I mean, one thing is what I tell to investors, which I need to prepare them for potential negative trends. I truly believe and I hope this crisis, but also before this crisis, and I see that already on some airports, they understand that at the end of the day, with the generation change, if we don't change the way we make the retail, we're simply not going to have sales, not for us and not for the airport either. And yes, maybe you squeeze a minimum guaranteed for 5 years, but then nobody else is going to bid. The focus has to be understanding the passengers and make an offer that can really satisfy them, and therefore we have big sales. But this requires investment. This requires innovation. All what I described up to now is not cheap. And let me be very clear, we are here to make money, and the airports are here to make money. But our priorities will be to deploy all this new, all this innovation, all these elements of the retail revolution and the digital revolution on those airports where we can actually make money. I really hope for once, and as you said, there has been a debate for decades, for once airports realize that this is about partnership. And this is about all working together to increase the satisfaction of the traveler, to increase the spend per head, and then all benefit from them. If your focus is the short-term minimum guaranteed, that for us is not the type of partner we would like to have. Of course, we cannot mandate the airports what they should do. We can just try to inspire them to do the right thing. And I'm convinced that if we work together, we can maximize the value for everybody. I'm convinced with the right combination of concession fee and investment on the sales, we can increase the returns of every single airport while increasing our returns. While if we focus on high short-term, high minimum guarantees, short-term, high minimum concessions, at the end of the day, there is a deployment. Not only I think the industry can double over the next couple of decades, I think the returns of the global industry could also double if we are smart. Of course, sometimes I preach to listeners, sometimes I preach to non-listeners. But I have a good feeling. On some airports, I think we are aligned on that.
And then you get a kind of four-way win, I think, not just the airport and the retailer, but also the brands of the world, let's remember them, and of course the most important stakeholder of all, as you said, the consumer. Well, we're going to close out now with a couple of questions. One's sounds a very simple question, but I think it's a very big one. You've covered a lot of it off. But if you had to narrow things down to your single greatest opportunity and the single biggest challenge, what would you say they are?
I'm going to even summarize it because I think the biggest challenge is the biggest opportunity too. It's the same thing. And it's the team. I think everything happens if you have a good team, if you have a team that is aligned, working on the same direction. And I think if you get there, everything else is possible. So that is my biggest challenge for this year. And for next year, because with the integration with Autogrill, it will be not only aligning one, but aligning two teams. But I think if you are even, I always give the same example, the football team. I mean, successful football teams are teams that have one single strategy, one single way of playing, and then you have diverse type of players. Each of them knows their position and they are good at each position. If you achieve that, everything else falls as a continuation.
I thought you were describing the All Blacks from my home country of New Zealand for a moment. However, they've lost their way a little bit lately, so maybe I shouldn't use that analogy. Okay, look, this interview is going to be seen, as I said, by your airport partners, your brand partners, and ultimately your team from around the world. Any single closing message?
Well, I would really like to finish saying we are in a great industry. Yes, there are some short-term storms ahead of us, but I think they will pass and we will look back to these last few years and we will say, yes, it was difficult, but look at where we are. But I think the key of the success for all of us will be collaboration. I think the brands, the airports, and the retailers, we have to work together to do a better job. If we do that, it's a bright future for all of us. If we fight, it might not be so bright for any of us.
Well, Xavier Rossinyol, thanks for being with us today. You pledged on camera to be with us at Trinity next year, so I'm going to hold you to that. May you have great success in sailing the good ship Dufry into not only calmer waters, but more exciting times ahead. And I do believe your vision is the right one. It's led by the consumer and that good days lay ahead. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you for your great job in the industry.
Thank you.